Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Cloud Launch and Learn episode of the day. Today, we are going to have a special session on virtual Azure networks. It's not a virtual Azure networks, but it is Azure Virtual Wan, right?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
much more than the virtual networks there. And you would learn all about, where to connect them, right? So what are the scenarios you want to use them? And some real use cases that Hannes is going to present. Our guest speaker is joining from Austria. It's not Australia, so don't mix this up, okay? Yeah. So welcome, Hannes, to our studio. Floor is yours. And again, thank you everyone for joining. If you wanna watch this episode later on, it's going to be recorded and be available on our YouTube channel on Cloud Lunch and Learn. So check them out. So Hannes, it's all yours. Giving back to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, so my last session today. So we have two sessions in the past. So if you're interested, please visit the YouTube channel as well. So my name is Hannes Lagler-Grüner. I'm a lead cloud architect in one of the biggest consulting company in Austria named ACP IT Solution. I'm working since the beginning with public cloud. The reason for that is I'm working many years for Microsoft Austria, and it's the reason why I came into the situation to go deep dive into Microsoft Azure at the beginning. So since 2.5 years, I'm now a really happy Microsoft MVP, Microsoft Azure MVP. So if you want to follow me, so visit my blog or visit my YouTube, LinkedIn channel, and everything else. So enough from me. So let's go to the agenda from today. Today we have a new topic. We have an addition to my last session, network manager. In this case, I want to demonstrate the new topic named Azure Virtual Wan, a really cool feature. And here's the agenda from today. The agenda first, we will want to talk about what is Azure Virtual Wan. So you can see here, I have a mixed presentation today. So we are starting with a theory section, and at the end, I want to switch to my live demo. So it's nearly the same time, so approx 25 minutes from the theory section, and the rest of my session in a real live demo. It's not recorded, it's really live. And I want to demonstrate the powerful options what you have in Microsoft Virtual Wan, so Azure Virtual Wan. So first of all, what is Azure Virtual Wan? Then we go ahead and talk about a traditional approach. So what is the connection, what I always see? What is the architecture, the network architecture, what I will see or what I see at my customer environments. Then we go ahead and talk about the architecture from Virtual Wan, the strategy why Virtual Wan. And then we go a little bit deeper and talk about the components from Virtual Wan to implement Virtual Wan, to design the architecture. And at the end, I want to give you an overview about the communication metrics, options, what you have, and this is really short because the topic partner integration and monitoring fulfill a whole session from today. So it's really short. So I want to give you an overview about this. And then at the end, we go to the live demo. Okay, so I'm sorry. Let's start to the first topic, Azure Virtual Wan. What is Azure Virtual Wan? The official statement from Microsoft is Azure Virtual Wan is a networking service that brings many networking security and routing functionalities together to provide a single operational interface. This is coming from docs.microsoft.com, so this is the official statement. At the end, it's an single pay and service which give you the ability to design or to implement an hub and spoke architecture. It's a fully managed service. It's fully managed by Microsoft. So you design or you provision a Virtual Wan hub, and you define, okay, where the Virtual Wan hubs should be placed and also the connection together. It's really simple to connect Azure regions together. So you have the ability to connect the Azure perspective, the Azure virtual networks, and for sure also on-premise environments to your Virtual Wan environment, and bring everything together in one huge one. At the end, you also always use, if you have a regional not only on regional. If you have an region pair, if you're using more regions, you always use the Microsoft Global Network backbone to connect each together. But what is so special? What is the so special about the Azure Global Backbone? So I have here, I know it's really old, but I think it demonstrates the power from Azure itself, for the power from the network infrastructure, the worldwide network infrastructure. You can see here we have more than 60 Azure regions. I'm really happy that maybe next year also an Austrian region is planned, and hopefully next year the region is also available. But at the end, we have more than 60 Azure regions which you can use to place your virtual WAN components. And you can bring Azure regions, or the connectivity to Azure, really near to your branch office or to your headquarters, what you prefer. We have a huge amount of fiber subsea cables. So we have a dedicated line between Europe and US. And we have 170 and more edge sites, which you can use, and more than 500 network partner integration and 20,000 peering connections. So it's really huge. So you can use all components here. You can bring your architecture to the whole world if you want. So where your locations, or where the locations are, what you prefer, what you need for your architecture. So this is the reason why I'm always talking about the benefits from the Microsoft Global Backbone. So you can use everything here. So let's talk about the traditional approach. So normally when I came to my customers, I always see exactly this architecture, not for all customers, for the most of my customers. So normally you have your data center, you have your one or more data center, and your branch offices are connected in a star connection to your data center. You're using an MPLS or a site-to-site VPN. If you're using MPLS, you're using it because you want to implement a quality of service, and you have exactly this to your headquarters. We have different latency for sure. So when we came from different branch offices with different connection options, we have different latency. We have a longer provisioning duration. So think about MPLS. So when you have a new branch office and you want to implement a new branch office in an existing MPLS environment, it could take months if it's implemented. It's expensive. So a regional MPLS, so from Austria perspective, it's not so expensive. But when we think about a worldwide MPLS environment, it could be really, really expensive. And at the end, when we think about cloud, so we have here an extra hop or more hops to the cloud. So when, for example, a branch office wants to connect to the cloud, it always goes over the centralized data center connection to the cloud. So not really, really good. The reason for that is more and more services are going or migrated or provisioned into the cloud. And this is the reason why we have to bring a new network strategy to our architecture. A new network strategy could be Azure Virtual Wan. And when we think about the architecture from Azure Virtual Wan, we have here, or when we think about new architecture from the cloud perspective, we have an old architecture. It's not really legacy, but it's an old architecture when we think about VPN gateways. So in this case, we have a traditional approach. We have here our VPN gateways in two regions. One region North Europe, one region Central US. So we have here exactly these two regions here. So you can see this. We have here two regions. We have here a VPN gateway, for example, for the US branch office. We have an express route gateway and separate gateway for the headquarters for the US, and the same in North Europe with two gateways. The problem here is it's really complex to configure because we have different, we don't have a centralized pane. We don't have a single pane of glass where we can configure the VPN gateway in Europe and the VPN gateway in US. It's a separate service in two different regions and maybe two different resource groups. and it's really hard to configure. It's really complex to configure. And think about changes. So if you change something, the change could be included a downtime, and the downtime always means cost efficient. So it's really cost. Includes costs. It's really hard to expand. So when we want to implement a new region, we have to provision an express route gateway. We have to think about the peering connection. We have to think about, okay, is everything routed correctly if you don't use BGP? And at the end, we also have a limitation from the site-to-site VPN gateway. So think about connectivity. The new limitation from the biggest site-to-site VPN gateway is 100 concurrent connections. So normally we are using the smaller one. So then we have the ability to connect up to 30 concurrent connections to a single VPN gateway. And this is a limitation which is in some situations really, really bad. And the only thing what you can do is you can provision a second VPN gateway in a different network. And yeah, that's really, really bad. When we go to the approach, when we go to the architecture based on Azure Virtual Wan, we have exactly this picture here. You can see here it's not really, we don't need more virtual WAN hubs for different connection. So in this case, we can use a virtual WAN hub in US, for example, in West US, and we can use here a VPN gateway. We can also implement an express route. This is not, it's not now connected to the US, to the West US configuration, but it's possible. So you can provision one virtual WAN hub, and you can choose, okay, I want to use site-to-site VPN connection, express route connection to another branch office or headquarters. We have here one single pane. So this one here is always managed from one centralized service, the Virtual WAN service, and you have the ability to centralize, monitor everything. So we will see this in the live demo as well. And the limitation is much higher. So when we think about VPN gateways, the maximum number of concurrent connection from a VPN gateway of a virtual WAN hub is 1,000. So you can use a VPN hub and can connect up to 1,000 concurrent site-to-site VPN connections. And for sure, you're always using between the virtual WAN hubs here, the Microsoft Azure backbone. So it's also really, really important. And everything in one configuration pane. So this is really important. This is really interesting. So let's go a little bit more into the details about the Virtual WAN approach. What we have is a global transit, centralized, easier transitive connectivity. Centralized is really important for many use cases. Much easier to provision, much easier to upscale, much easier to expand. So it's really cool. It's really simple. At the end, you have the option to implement a site-to-site VPN gateway, a point-to-site VPN connection, or express route connection on your Virtual WAN configuration. You have a routing instance. You can route, you can implement different routes. You can use the standard configuration or implement what you prefer. You have the ability to integrate firewalls, the Azure firewall, third-party NVAs, or software as a service solution. It's really new. This is the ability what you have. And you have for sure a centralized monitoring in Azure. We will also see this in the live demo later on. Okay, from the architecture perspective. So when we think about Virtual WAN, we have two different options that we can use. The first option is we can build up a single point, a single region connectivity. So we implement Virtual WAN, one Virtual WAN hub, and connect different regions, different endpoints, different branch offices or headquarters over different connectivity experiences to Virtual WAN, site-to-site VPN, point-to-site VPN, express route, what you prefer. You can also implement, you can also connect other hyperscalers like AWS, GCP, Alibaba, or whatever, or Microsoft service provider, what you prefer. We can also connect virtual networks in the same region or from other regions to Virtual WAN, what you prefer. Always think about when we connect virtual networks to VWan, we always use the Microsoft backbone, the regional backbone, or the global backbone. This is a single region experience here. When we think about when we want to bring the endpoint, the connectivity endpoint near to the branch office or headquarter, we also have the ability to implement a multi-region connectivity or multi-region architecture, exactly like this one here. And this is also the architecture what I've implemented in my test environment, which we'll see later on. So here you can see we have two regions. We have region 1, region 2. We have virtual networks in region 1 as well in region 2. And these virtual networks are connected to the nearest VWan hubs. And at the end, the VWan hub is connected over an hub-to-hub connectivity over the Microsoft backbone. But the important thing here is everything that you can see here is configured in one service. In one service, Azure VWan service. So you have a centralized configuration for your two regions, for your different connections, for your peerings, network peerings, and so on. This configuration is only available for the VWan standard hub. So this is also really important, but we will see this in a few minutes about the difference between basic and standard VWan hub configurations. Okay, so let's go to the details about the VWan components. What components do we have when we want to implement or when we want to integrate and build up a VWan architecture? First of all, we have to provision the service itself, the VWan service. This is the centralized control pane for all your VWan hubs, what you implement in the near future. Then we are implementing the VWan hub. It's a regional core of VWan. So when you say, okay, I want to connect my branch office from Austria, example, I'm using at the moment the nearest data center location, Germany West Central, for example, or West Europe, what I prefer. Then I provision in exactly this region and VWan hub. I can also implement the VWan hub in other regions, so what we have mentioned before. The VWan hub can include hub gateway types for the connection endpoint. So we have here different gateway options: point-to-site VPN, site-to-site VPN, or express route. The second thing here, it's now not, so you can now provision not only one VWan hub per location, so you can provision more VWan hubs per location if it's required, if the limitation is reached. Really important is it's not really the same like a VPN gateway because the limitation is much higher. So we have here much more connectivity options, and at the end it's fully managed from Microsoft. So it's not really 100% the same like a VPN gateway. Okay, when we have our VWan service, the centralized control pane, the VWan hub, we go ahead and build up a connectivity. A connectivity could be a hub-to-network connectivity, for example, a site-to-site VPN connection, a point-to-site VPN connection, or express route, what you prefer. At the end, you can also implement your virtual network connection from Azure, their spokes. Always think about the limitation here. This is not a limitation from VWan. This is a spoke connectivity connection. You can have up to 500 spokes per VWan hub. Normally, I don't see any limitation or problems here. You can also enable or disable the hub-to-hub, cannot disable. You can choose between two different VWan hubs. The hub-to-hub connectivity is only available for the standard VWan hub. If you want to provision a basic VWan hub, you don't have the ability to connect two VWan hubs together. Okay. Then we have the connectivity. We have a connection between on-premise, between the cloud, between the VWan hubs, and so on. Then we have the ability to define our route tables. Normally, you can use the default route tables. So if you connect your on-premise, if you're using BGP and route everything or announce everything to the default route table, all locations are available. All location can see all routes and you have a full mesh, you have a branch-to-branch connectivity implemented. You also have the ability to customize the routes, to define your own route tables if you want, and to separate some locations from other locations if you want. You can populate routes manually. I always recommend use a BGP configuration, so dynamically populate your routes. You also have the ability to build VPN sites, or you have to build up VPN sites, the on-premise, or when we think about the local gateway from the VPN perspective, which represent the VPN connection between VirtualWan Hub and on-premise or the branch office. And we have the site links, the connectivity. This is really the connection between on-premise and VirtualWan. So the difference between VirtualWan, we have here two options. We have the basic option and we have the standard VPN or the VirtualWan tier. The basic only supports site-to-site VPN. It allows to connect virtual network. It allows to scale up, scale down. It's high availability. So we always provision, when we provision VirtualWan, we always provision 2 nodes in the backend. So it's high availability in 2 different zones. This is really important to understand or to know. And at the end, we don't have an hub-to-hub connectivity available for the VirtualWan Hub, VirtualWan Basic. The recommendation here is always use the standard VirtualWan Hub because the basic VirtualWan Hub will be retired. There's no official announcement at the moment, but it will be retired in the near future. You can upgrade from basic to the VirtualWan Hub standard, but you cannot revert from standard to VirtualWan Hub basic. This is also important. When we think about the standard VirtualWan Hub, we have the full ability from the connection perspective. So we also have express route and point-to-site VPN. We have an any-to-any transitive connectivity, and we cannot upgrade. We cannot downgrade from standard to basic VirtualWan Hub. And for sure, we have the hub-to-hub connectivity available. So when we go ahead, and I have to look up a little bit on the time, the communication matrix, what is possible? So when we have here a multi-region architecture, we have here the ability to connect from branch to Azure for sure, over site-to-site VPN, over point-to-site VPN. So in this case, you have your own laptop at home and you can connect to the environment. Over express route from a headquarter. When we think about branch-to-branch connectivity, we can use the Microsoft backbone to connect over VPN, site-to-site VPN and express route over 2 different regions. About single region, point-to-site, the same from the point-to-site perspective. So these are all options what you have, and also for sure from the Azure perspective, when we have our virtual networks, we can connect over the VirtualWan Hub from one virtual network to another virtual network or over 2 regions over the Microsoft backbone. So this is also possible. What are the limitations here? When we go to the site-to-site VPN here, we have a multi-link support. So we can have up to 4 link connection per connection. It's always redundant. So you have 2 nodes. I always recommend use both 2 connections. And if it's possible, if you have 2 ISPs, always use different ISPs for a connection. So normally VirtualWan is redundant. So if one node is going down, the automatic failover is it's automatic failover to the second node. It could take up to 5 minutes, but it's better when you have 2 connections, and in this case you have to use BGP. You can scale up to 20 gigabits. 1 scale unit, so it's size per scale unit. So 1 scale unit is always 500 megabits, and you can scale up to 20 gigabits. You can have up to 1,000 site-to-site VPN connections per hub. You can use EKV1, EKV2 for sure. We have a FQDM-based or dynamic DNS support. And if you want to implement AWS, for example, you can also define your custom IP addresses and BGP configuration. And it's also interesting, it's integrated into Azure monitoring. We will see this also in the live demo. When we go to the point-to-site VPN, so it's really interesting here. It's from the scaling here, it's up to 20 gigabits, up to 10,000 users per hub. It's also really interesting. And you can use OpenVPN or Azure VPN Client based on EKV2. And my recommendation or my preferred way here is over Azure Active Directory authentication, because this is a single user experience. So you can use the same user from Office 365 and also MFA authentication with the conditional access rules. This is the same here when you use Azure Active Directory authentication. It's also integrated in Virtual Network Monitor. Okay, and at the end, Express Route, it's only available from the standard VWan hub, the same 20 gigabits. Private Microsoft peering is available. This is not special for VWan, so this is the same when you implement Express Route in your normal architecture. So now we'll go in the short demonstration about partner integration. Okay, I'm sorry, I can see. Yeah. Partner integration. So we have here the ability to convert the Azure hub to a secure hub. You have here the ability to use Azure the Azure firewall with the firewall manager, or third-party NVAs like Checkpoint or Barracuda, what you prefer. Also, a partner integration could be the on-premise side. So an automatical provisioning from the on-premise side of the configuration perspective. So when we think about, for example, FortiGate or Fortinet firewalls, you have here the ability to configure on-premise and also provision automatically the Azure VWan hub, including, or the VWan hub, the nearest, also include or implement the connection between both sides, and at the end configure the on-premise firewall in one step. So we have here different partner integrations. So if you are interested here into more details, please ping me. And at the end, we have a monitoring. It's also really important to have an visibility, an end-to-end visibility connection from the architecture perspective. So we have here inside in VWan, we have here different metrics to get more details about the connectivity. We have diagnostic logs to integrate diagnostic logs, for example, in a centralized monitoring system. And we have the ability to use Azure Network Watcher to monitor the connection, to monitor the end-to-end connection as well. Okay, a little bit over my time. Let's go to the live demo. So this is exactly the live demo what I've provisioned in my environment. We can see here we have two different regions from the Azure perspective. We have East US 2, we have West Europe. We have one branch office in East US with a connectivity with Site VPN connectivity, one scale unit, 500 megabit, to the nearest VWan hub. We have, in this case, virtual network connections from East US and from West Europe. From the West Europe perspective, we have two different branch offices. We have one branch office in the UK. We have a second branch office in West Europe. And this branch office is, from the UK perspective, is a direct connection. So when the branch office in the UK want to communicate, for example, with East US, it's a direct connection. When the branch office from West Europe want to connect to the branch office in UK, it also have a direct connection. So exactly this one here. And I want to demonstrate also a failover. I also have here my point-to-site VPN located in West Europe in my VWan hub in West Europe. So what I want to demonstrate is, first of all, the point-to-site VPN connection, the user experience, what you have. The second one is get an overview about the single service or about the centralized service VWan. Then we go ahead and test the connectivity, branch-to-branch connectivity over two regions. Then also a connection between my point-to-site VPN. And I want to show you a connectivity with the monitoring perspective. And at the end, I want to show you the automation perspective, what we have. One thing that is not here at the demo, I want to demonstrate also if this connection is broken, what happens. So normally when the connection is broken and I want to connect from West Europe to UK is a direct connection, but if the direct connection is broken, we're going over the failover connection and exactly this way here. And I want to demonstrate live, what does this mean? Okay, so let's go to the point-to-site VPN user experience. It's really simple. So you can see here I've installed my Azure VPN client. And if you want, I don't disconnect at the moment because then everything is broken. If you want to implement a new connection, a new virtual WAN connection, it's really simple. You go to import and select your Azure VPN configuration file. So when you provision a VPN gateway, a point-to-site VPN gateway, at the end you can choose, okay, what's the authentication method, and then you can download your configuration file. And in my case, you can see here, I have my authentication type, Azure Active Directory integration chosen. And this is really interesting. So when I want to connect, the connection profile always asking me, okay, please enter your username, your password. And at the end, you will, from the connection flow, you're going to Azure Active Directory authentication and multi-factor authentication, and also from using the conditional access policies. So this is really simple when we go ahead and have a look to the configuration file. So this is exactly the configuration file what you get from Azure. You can see here the audience. This is normally everything the same. You can see here the issuer and the tenant. I've removed here my tenant ID, but you can see here, this is everything what you need. We have here a secret. This is not the whole secret. And you can see here our virtual WAN hub endpoint. It's really, really simple. So when this is done, you can connect and you can see here, this all my routes. So my configuration is based on BGP. So I know all routes from all locations, from all my different locations. Okay. So let's go to the centralized pane. In this case, I have two resource groups located in West Europe. And you can see here, I have here my virtual WAN. This is the single service or the centralized pane. When we go into the virtual WAN environment, you can see here I have two different virtual WAN hubs, one in West Europe, one in East US 2. Let's go to the virtual WAN hub in West Europe. You can see here, you have different option. You can implement a VPN, a site-to-site VPN connectivity, an express route, or a user point-to-site VPN connection. In my case, I have here my two VPN connections on my site-to-site VPN gateway and one point-to-site VPN gateway configured. So let's go ahead. And you can see here, I have two connections, one connection to UK, one connection to West Europe. It's connected, it's provisioned, the connection status is successful, everything is fine. You can see here, I have my gateway scale units, it's one scale unit. One scale unit means 500 megabit, but when we think about high availability, we always provision two nodes, and this is the case where we have here two 500 megabit editions. If you want to scale up, it's really simple. Select here the scale unit, what you prefer, up to 20 scale units, which means 20 gigabit, because we have two nodes here in place. You can see, or you can also see here the public IP address, the BGP IP address, and yeah, we can define, you can also define here a custom BGP IP address if it's required. The AES number is, you cannot change the AES number from a VPN gateway. You can change the AES number from the on-premise perspective for sure. Okay, so if you want to change the virtual WAN hub into a secure hub, you have here the ability to use the Azure firewall. So for example, if you want to provision here, if you want to modify this virtual WAN hub in West Europe to a secure hub, We can choose here a virtual Azure firewall based on basic standard tier, standard or premium tier, what you prefer. Or we can also use NVA providers, NetScaler, Checkpoint, Zscaler, I'm sorry, Checkpoint or JBoss. And this is really new if you want to implement a software as a service solution. Okay, it's not ready at the moment here. You can also implement here a software as a service solution. Okay, so this is from the VPN gateway. So let's go to the user VPN or the VPN gateway. In my case here, I've implemented also one scale unit, so you can also scale up your VPN gateway here up to 200 scale units, which means up to 10,000 clients. From the configuration perspective, I've configured here Azure Active Directory configuration. So this is not here available, but here's the important part. If you want to download the configuration, click here on download, generate the download profile, and then you will get the XML file, which you can import in your VPN client. Okay, so from the network connectivity inside Azure, you have here the ability to connect your virtual networks. So this will take a few seconds. Then we will see the two virtual WAN hubs and the connectivity between the virtual networks from Azure and the virtual WAN hub. Okay, it takes longer. Come on. Yes. Here you can see in West Europe, I have one virtual network connection succeeded. And you can see here, I have here my virtual network, West Europe 01. And they're associated to the root table default and also propagating everything to the label default. So we have here the ability to connect. So we have here the ability to define the name, select the hub, for example. In this case, I'm using here this one, select my resource group. Okay, it's not available. So here, West Europe. Then you have the ability to propagate to none, which means, okay, no one else knows the IP address space here. And here you can define your root table, the default root table, or if you want to implement your own root table, you will also see this here in the drop-down list. This is the default configuration. You can route this to a specified root table in a specified region, or what I've chosen, you can route this to a label, to a root table label. In this case, I propagate this to default, which means all virtual WAN hubs at the moment and in the near future will get these routes in their root tables. If you want, you can also implement your static routes. And here you have also the ability to bypass the next hop. Okay, so what's about monitoring? We have here two different options. The first option is to understand the architecture from Virtual WAN. So we have here insights, and when we go to insights, you can see here the whole architecture from my Virtual WAN environment. So I have two hubs, one in West Europe, one in East US 2. I have here one site-to-site VPN connection with two connectivities, with two connections, one to West Europe, one to UK. I have here my point-to-site VPN gateway with one connection in this case. And I have here my connection to a virtual network in Asia in West Europe. And the same here in East US 2, not a point-to-site VPN connection. I have here only my site-to-site VPN connection to on-premise and my VNet connection to the VNet in East US. If you want to get more details, you have here the ability to get into the matrix section and get a better overview and better understanding about the VPN, site-to-site VPN connection matrix, and so on. Okay, so let's go to a performance test. So I'm now switching to my desktop. And you can see here, I have here my three regions. This is not a screenshot, so we have here a real-time ICMP ping. And you can see here, this is my on-premise environment in Ohio, in this case, East US 2. This is my on-premise environment in Paris, and this is my on-premise environment in UK. You can also see here the latency, so 110 milliseconds between Ohio, and in this case, UK. I think it's not really bad. When we have a look here from Paris to UK, we have a direct connection. So I want to switch back to my presentation here. So here you can see I have a direct connection between West Europe and UK. And first of all, what I want to show is what happens when the connection is broken between West Europe and UK. So normally the connection is broken, the SMP ping is going down. In my case, I'm now putting the interface down. You can see here in a few seconds, now the switch is finished. Here 10 milliseconds and now 26 milliseconds. So now we are using the connection between Paris and VWan to connect to UK. So we are now switching. I'm sorry, I'm going back here. The connection here is broken. And without a downtime, I'm using exactly this connectivity here, without a downtime. I go back. It will take a few seconds because I don't want to implement a flapping between direct connection. So now it switched back to a direct connection. We have here now the 10.8 milliseconds. So what about the performance here? So I have implemented here iPerf, the performance here between Ohio and in this case, Paris. I'm sorry, not Paris. Yes, okay, I'm sorry, Paris. This is the wrong one here. 105 megabit per second between Ohio and Paris, and it's stable, what you can see here. And without a delay or with a minimum delay here in the ICMP timeout, as in the ICMP time. So you can see here once more, it's not changing. It's a little bit different, 130, 111 milliseconds. It's nearly the same without a delay. Okay, so that's about the connectivity perspective. When we go to the end-to-end monitoring perspective, we have here a second option, the connectivity connection monitor. From my point of view, this is not really the best situation here because we are using here the old one, the old connectivity monitor, the classic one. It's not directly implemented. So when we try to connect to use the new monitor, we have to switch here. And here you can see I'm using the network monitor, network watcher, the connection monitor. And I have here 2 connection tests. One connection test is to on-premise, to East US 2. And the second one is to West Europe. Both not really successful because the round trip time is too high. But you can implement this. You can also implement an alert, an Azure alert based on an Azure action group, so what you prefer. Okay, and at the end, I want to show you the ability what you have for the automatically provisioning. So infrastructure as code. You have here the same ability when you implement other services in Azure. You can use ARM templates. We can also go here to the configuration and export the template. For example, here, VWan. You also have here the ability to export your current configuration. It's not really useful. It's useful, yes, for sure, but you cannot use it in another environment because you only have here the ability to export the virtual WAN service itself without an hub gateway, without the configuration and so on. But it's available, you can use it, you can implement everything. So in my environment, it's a single deployment. So I'm using exactly this ARM template for the deployment for my live demo. It will take up to 1 hour to provision finished, because the virtual WAN hubs will take approx 45 minutes to provision finished. But with everything in place, so I have here my virtual WAN hub service. I have here my virtual WAN hubs in the different locations. I have here my gateways. I have here the virtual networks, also the connection from the virtual networks. I have here my point-to-site VPN connection, the VPN gateway connection, and so on and so on. So everything is available here. With ARM templates, you can also, if you want or if you prefer, using Bicep or Terraform, everything is here in place. Okay, so from the time perspective, I'm really good. Let's go ahead and let's make a recap. Why Azure Virtual WAN? What is Virtual WAN and why Azure Virtual WAN? It's really, from the operational perspective, it's really efficiency. So you have a much simpler architecture because you have a single pane of glass, you have a centralization, and you have the ability to scale up, scale down. It's fully managed by Microsoft. So the backend, the node switch, everything is managed by Microsoft. It's redundancy without operational, it's reduce the operational cost. I'm sorry. To increase site-to-site and point-to-site VPN, you have seen it in the demo. It's really simple. Choose another scale unit and you scale up or scale down. You have an overall higher throughput, so 20 gigabyte per second for point-to-site, site-to-site VPN or express route. It's redundancy, once more, zone redundant per default. So when we think about VPN gateways, you have to provision the AC VPN gateways to implement the zone redundancy. And you also have the ability to implement third-party firewalls, NVA, software as a service. I recommend and what I prefer, the Azure firewall. So that's from my session. I hope you enjoyed it. I can see here there are a lot of questions. So
Yes, so let's bring some questions. Thank you, Hannes. So first question came from that says, is this setup meant for enterprise companies? I mean, referring the question to Azure Virtual Wan. Okay, is it for enterprise or mid-sized companies? I mean, what is the good cost-effective implementation for virtual WANs?
So it's not designed for enterprise companies, really. So if a company using more regions, and if you want to use the Microsoft backbone to connect more regions, use Virtual WAN. It's much easier from the routing perspective as when you implement site-to-site VPN gateways or firewalls. From the cost perspective, it's a bit higher. It's up to, I guess, 20% higher than a normal VPN gateway. But always keep in mind, it's fully managed by Microsoft. It's always zone redundancy. So when we provision VPN gateways, availability zone ready, the break even between virtual WAN hub and traditional VPN gateways, it's not so, there's not the huge difference between. Normally, I recommend this solution to my bigger customers with different branch offices. Always think about security. So we have here the ability to implement firewalls, to upscale or to change the virtual WAN hubs to a secure hub. Also route everything over this virtual WAN hub. So the answer here is not really, it's not only designed for enterprise environments. You can also use it for mid-sized companies, depending on the architecture requirements.
And as a rule of thumb, just to follow back on this question, so it makes sense if the company has like three different Azure regions, right, that they connect and plus headquarters, then it makes sense from perspective and from performance perspective to give it a try for the Azure Virtual One, right? But if they have only two Azure regions, would it be still, good investment to switch to Azure Virtual One
It,
for
it's
connectivity?
it's depending how many branch offices do you have. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have only one headquarter, one branch office, and you're using two Azure environments, I think here's the better choice to use one VPN gateway or Express route for the headquarter connection to Azure, and implement a point-to-site VPN, not a point-to-site, a VNet peering over
Mm-hmm.
Network Manager, for example, between the two regions. But when you think about a centralization, you have a bigger environment, you have more branch offices in different locations, different regions, and you want to centralize the whole configuration, I recommend use VWan for sure.
Okay, thank you. So let's switch to next question. This came
Mhm.
from Angel Mohammed. So it said that what are the he's interested in the FortiGate. I believe
Yeah.
that's the firewall
Mhm.
checkpoint integration with virtual WAN.
Yeah.
So,
So
hmm
I can give you here an. So if you're interested into more details, please ping me, but I can give you a short overview. For example, for the FortiGate perspective. When we implement a Forti environment, so normally you have here on-premise Forti firewalls, and you're using maybe SD-WAN technologies. What you can do now with Fortinet is you can change the virtual WAN hub here in Asia to an Forti-based virtual WAN hub and integrate the Forti virtual WAN hub from the Asia perspective into your SD-WAN technology. And this is a huge improvement here from my point of view. I'm also visiting a few months ago the accelerator in Orlando from Fortinet and see this in a live demo. This is really, really interesting. So this is from the Fortinet perspective. From the checkpoint perspective, you can scale up, or you can change the virtual WAN hub to a checkpoint firewall and use the checkpoint firewall for egress and ingress traffic. So this is the ability what you have. But if you want more information about Fortinet, because we are also a Fortinet partner, ACB, please ping me directly.
okay, great. Thank you for that answer. Thank you for answering all these questions. I don't see any other question. There's another kind of follow-up question on
Mhm.
overall number of sites that are good to have before using the Azure Virtual WAN. But I believe you already
Mhm.
answered that one. It really depends on number of
No,
branches, right?
it's not for 10 sites. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have two branch offices, you can also use virtual WAN. So I have a configuration from a bigger Austrian worldwide company, but located in Austria, with up to 20 sites in Asia, 20 regions in Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and more than 200 on-premise sites. So it always depends on your configuration, but the minimum, from my point of view, the minimum configuration here is if you have two on-premise environments, two on-premise sites on two different locations, use virtual WAN if you want to have a centralized configuration pane, if you want to use the Microsoft backbone between the connectivity from the both on-premise sites. So if you want this, use Azure Virtual WAN. If you only have one site, but using two regions in Asia, you can choose between Virtual WAN or, for example, Network Manager, what I've presented before 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Yep. All right, that's true. Thank you for clarifying this question as well. Let me hide this. Okay, so we are done with all the questions. So Hannes, so if the view, what if people are watching this presentation later in the day, where you would like them to go in order to contact you back. So can you bring your social links
Yes,
and
for
everything for
sure.
them?
So my first slide here.
Okay, so
First of all, I have the
anyone
same
who is
demonstration.
watching us, yes, who is watching us later, not please feel free to reach back to Hannes. These are his connection information here on the slide. And thank you, Hannes, for a very engaging presentation.
Thank
We
you.
got some, good responses from the chat as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone who joined our session. Bye for now. Hope to see you on our next Cloud Launch and Learn session. Bye for now. Thank you, Hannes. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.